Hello and welcome to the Womanifester podcast. I'm your host, Katie J. I'm a women's empowerment coach and a mentor to badass, game-changing women. I'm here to share insights, practices, and resources that help me and my clients manifest with ease. It's my hope that you'll apply what you learn in this podcast to your life. When you embody these practices and mindset shifts on a daily basis, you will notice profound shifts in your life. My clients and listeners tell me that after working with me, they have a deeper trust in themselves, a better relationship with their own inner wisdom, and they are more alive and awakened to their inner joy and happiness. If you want more energy, more self-love, more abundance, and better relationships, then tune in for your daily dose of motivational messages from me and my special guests. If you're ready to live life as your most authentic self and manifest faster and easier than ever before, then you've come to the right place. Thank you for joining. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Womanifester podcast. I'm interrupting our normal flow to do things a little differently because it's June 3rd. We're in the middle of Black Lives Matter protests all over the country. This is something that is very strange for me. Because every time I open up my newsfeed on Instagram, my ancestral trauma is displayed for me and the whole world to see. And I have been only recently, like within the last year, aware that my ancestral trauma as a Black woman impacts my life and impacts my manifestations if I let it, if I don't heal it, if I don't address it. So I know that all of this discomfort is coming up for the highest good of all involved, because if it's in our human experience, it's for the highest good of all involved. And I have just been feeling called to share my Black experience because for the longest time, I didn't think anyone would care or listen or, in business, they always tell you it's not about you, it's about the client. And I know that, but I know that there are also potential clients out there or just other women, other Black people, other people of color, other folks of color who can identify with my story. And I'm not here to just sit down and tell you all of the things that suck about being Black, because there aren't many, I'll tell you that. There are actually quite a few things that are amazing about being Black, and what I want to share with you are some of the things that I've gone through in my life because I am in a Black skin suit, because my soul resides in this spacesuit that just happens to be brown. And I want to tell you about these things, these circumstances, situations, people in my life who have impacted me. And I want to tell you about the good, the bad, the ugly, the transformation, the light and beauty in all of it. So in classic Womanifester Katie J fashion, I am putting a twist on my Black story and telling you the low parts, but telling you about how they have made me who I am today. So I wanted to just start off by giving you a little bit of background, because not every Black experience, just like not every Asian experience, not every white experience is going to be the same. Not every Hispanic experience is going to be the same. So I grew up in I would call upper middle class home. My dad's a lawyer. My mom works for a large oil and gas company, and we had abundance. Abundance was overflowing in our home. And sometimes it didn't feel like it just because of the, wanting things that you can't always have, right? Like as kids, sometimes you just want more and more and more and more, and your parents tell you that you can't have it. It's not necessarily because they can't afford it, but just because you don't need it, right? And so we were able to go on ski vacations and live in larger homes and have pools and sport courts and attend all of the extracurriculars that we wanted to. I mean, there was always enough for us. There was always food on the table. I remember one time my dad got mad at me because I put my name on something in the refrigerator. And he was like, we don't put our name on things in this house. There's always enough. If we run out, we'll buy more, which I really appreciate that mindset growing up. So I grew up in a very, very blessed Black home. My grandfather was a Baptist pastor, so my father was very religious, and we grew up in a very religious home. Until the 3rd grade, I lived in Houston and went to school with a variety of kids from a variety of backgrounds, people from all over the East and international. I remember there were kids from Western Europe that would come to, I lived in Houston, so it was a pretty big city. And there were a lot of Black kids in my class and in my grade, and they had wealth too. That was kind of the norm. So when I moved to Austin in the summer before 4th grade, Austin is an entirely different story than Houston when it comes to how Black and white folk interact. In Houston, there's Black wealth everywhere. In Austin, most Black people do not have money, although my parents did still manage to find a community of wealthy Black folks that we mainly hung out with. When I moved to Austin, there were only 2 Black kids in my entire grade, me and one other girl. And 4th grade just so happened to be the first time that I developed a crush on a boy who obviously was white. And I'm pretty sure that we would chat on AIM, just like everyone else in our class would chat on AIM at night, which is AOL Instant Messenger. If you don't remember that, my screen name was something like Chica Katie 91. And I had a crush on a boy named Wilson. I won't use last names. And I can't remember how the conversation exactly went down, but I basically told Wilson that I have a crush on him. And he told me that he couldn't date me or be my boyfriend because I'm Black. And we didn't go into much detail like my parents won't accept you or I'm just not into Black girls. Like we didn't really go into that. It was the 4th grade. But that was the first time ever in my life that somebody rejected me because of the color of my skin. And it was in a romantic capacity. So that hurt. That hurt a lot. That wound was throbbing for a long time until about high school, when I started to learn how to read men. I'm not going to jump to high school at this point because there's so many things there's a few things I want to cover in between, but I directly relate my ability to read the energy of men. We can all read each other's energy. We all possess that power if you hone it, if you use it. But I had to start using it at a very early age by reading these little white boys and trying to understand, are they into me as a friend or are they into me as a romantic situation? And I had to get really good, really fast, really early on in my life at reading other people. So while that situation hurt, while that situation stung, it allowed me to develop and grow as a human and evolve as a human, or rather as a spirit in this human experience, because it forced me to not put myself in a situation again where I would be that hurt and that disappointed and that embarrassed. And I will be honest, you guys, as a 28-year-old adult woman, I am so grateful to Wilson because now I know so easily if a guy is into me or not. And so, I could end up playing on that energy if I'm into him or not, right? But I am just really grateful for the ability to read body language and facial expressions and energetic auras of potential mates. It makes things really easy when it comes to dating, I'll tell you that. So fast forward to middle school. The 7th grade. I am in Mr. McCallum's math class, and a classmate of mine, this is something I've never really spoken about. I think I've told maybe a handful of friends that this has happened. So in Mr. McCallum's class, I have this very clear, traumatizing image and visualization stuck in my energy field that I'm hoping to release by telling you all about it right now. So one of my classmates, his name is Sam. I won't tell you his last name. I'm going to be seeing all these people maybe at my high school reunion, so I don't want to completely throw them all under the bus. So Sam turned to me in Mr. McCallum's class and one day just started bullying me about being a white Black person. And he was just saying things like, you're the whitest Black person I know. You're just so white. You're so white. You're even whiter than I am. And was just attacking me. And we're all sitting in chairs around a table. The teacher's up at the front talking. You know, kids aren't really listening. Everyone's talking in the classroom at this point. But it was so awkward and so uncomfortable. And I felt so attacked that I remember just slipping into freeze mode. I mean, that's my confrontation, my stress response is to shrink up and pretend like I don't exist and to just shut down, close my mouth, not say anything, not fight back or leave. I just sit there. And that's exactly what I did in the 7th grade when I was verbally attacked by my classmate. And it took me a really long time to sift and sort through what he was actually saying when he was saying that I am a white Black person. And what he's actually saying is that wealth that you have, that education that you're getting, that way that you speak, which is proper English, yeah, you can't have any of that because you're Black. So if you have that, that makes you not Black, because all Black people are poor, uneducated, don't know how to speak proper English, and don't dress like that. All Black people are like this. All Black people are the same, is basically what he was saying. And it's just amazing to me because now I can look back at this situation and say, oh my God, this poor boy probably had no power at home, no power within his friend group, and had felt the need to lash out at somebody who he thought was weaker than him. And he was right at the time. I didn't have the words. I didn't have the drive to fight him on that. If he wants to talk about it during our high school reunion this fall, I would gladly talk about how racist his comments were. But despite the fact that this verbal abuse went on for what feels like weeks. I mean, in my memory, in my body's memory, this happened several times for weeks. And then finally it just stopped. Finally, he just stopped. He just left me alone, probably because he wasn't getting the reaction that he wanted to out of me. But the following year, I ran for class president, my 8th grade year of middle school. I ran for class president and won. And what's so funny is that this one bully situation, while it was traumatizing and hurtful, and I don't wish it upon anybody, it didn't stop me. It didn't stop me from making friends. It didn't stop me from getting A's. It didn't stop me from really, truly enjoying middle school and the rest of my life, right? And I'm sharing this part of my story with you because people have made really similar comments to Sam's, but they're not trying to be mean, but they are. They're not trying to be rude, but they are. They're not trying to be racist, but they are. And I want to share this with the world because white people need to know, Black people need to know, because Black people have called me white too, and that's just as hurtful, not only to me, but also to you as a Black person and just the human race in general. So think about those things when you want to call someone an Oreo, or I stopped using the word wigger because that's offensive too. Very early on, I stopped using that word. That was a really popular word in middle school. And I was like, this seems like it's also just as bad. And yeah, I just want to encourage people to think about what they are actually saying when they call a white person black or a black person white, because as a little girl, a little middle school girl, I was so confused at what he meant by that, because I'm sitting here looking at my skin and I'm like, dude, your ancestors still enslaved my ancestors. I'm still black. Just because I have money doesn't make me not black. I'm still having a black experience. And if I weren't actually black, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So know that that's something that you should definitely not ever say to people. Now let's fast forward to college. In college, I was a college cheerleader for the University of Virginia for the first 2 years that I attended there. The last 2 years, I was busy studying abroad and having fun. So my first 2 years, I was a cheerleader, and all of the cheerleaders, if you're familiar with cheer culture, everybody curls their hair so that it bounces when they bounce and it looks good for the entire performance or game. So even the black girls were curling their hair, which is funny because black girls' hair is naturally curly. At this point in my life, I was natural. I started to go natural in high school, and so by the time I got to college, I was not chemically straightening my hair or doing anything like that. I have a whole podcast episode about my hair, which I'm happy to share with you guys if you're interested. And it was the first home game that we had to cheer at, and Kelly Haney, our cheer coach, asked that I straighten and curl my hair. And keep in mind, my hair at this point is short, but curly, wavy, kinky. That's kind of my natural, but still smooth. That's my natural hair texture. And so the first game, I didn't know how to straighten and curl my hair the way she wanted. So the cheer captain, who is also black, her name's Ryan, she helped. So she washed, blow dried, straightened, and curled my hair. It took 3 hours, and she was like, never again, Kelly, am I ever doing that? Like, we're in college, we don't have time to be doing hair for 3 hours every single week, right? And that was just my hair. She still had to do her hair. So for the first time ever, Kelly allowed a cheerleader on her team to go natural. And all I had to do was half up, half down with a bow in my hair and just let my natural curls bounce around on that football field, which to me felt like a victory. And I remember my parents came to visit for one weekend, and they were in some box seats, and a gentleman from the Office of African American Affairs told them, if your daughter ever runs into any issues with the cheerleading team and her hair, send her to me. And so I always felt so welcome and at home, and like I could be my most authentic self at school at University of Virginia. So even though there have been bad things in the news about UVA, I fucking love that school and have only had good experiences. Although there was this one instance on a snow day when my friend Megan and I were walking back home, and we heard a group of people off to the side. And I can't exactly remember the exact words that he said, but there was a white gentleman, it was maybe 2 or 3 white dudes and 2 or 3 white girls hanging out together. And he said something like, it's colder than a nigger out here, or something like that, right as I walked by. And he wasn't saying it to me, but he was saying it amongst his group loud enough that I heard. And he saw that I heard, and all the girls in the group saw that I heard, and they all looked at me with like deer in the headlights. And then Megan and I just kept walking, again, shut down mode. I had nothing to say, nothing to do to them. It was just, I just kept walking, and then they all kind of broke out in laughter. And Megan and I were just kind of like in silence and shocked, and she wasn't really sure what to say. She's also white, and it was just a really awkward situation. But honestly, that was the only time at UVA that I ever experienced any sort of racism or N-words or whatever that I can remember. And I would probably remember them. But one thing that did happen that really got me angry for the first time about racism was when I was working at a summer camp, Camp Olympia. It's the same summer camp I grew up going to. It's a very expensive summer camp. There were not a lot of black kids there. And at the point that this story took place, I was not only a counselor, but I was also on the leadership staff there. And I was also asked to be a chiefess, because there are 2 different tribes. The the camp is split into two different tribes, the Spartans and the Athenians, because it's Camp Olympia, going with the theme. And my whole family were Athenians. And at that point in summer camp, I was asked for 3 weeks to be the chiefess, which means I led cheers, which made sense because I was a cheerleader. I led cheers. I ran around to all the different competitions in the morning and cheered on all the kids who were doing different sports, competing for points for our team. I painted myself blue. We led cheer competitions. I mean, we choreographed dances. I mean, it was a full-on extra job on top of getting paid, like 12 cents an hour to be a camp counselor. I loved that role as chiefess. And I mentioned the cheer competition. And one day my chief was a gentleman who went to school in Texas. We were both in college at the time. And he was a really nice guy. I'm actually blanking on his name right now, so let's just call him Steve. Steve's a white guy. Steve goes to A&M and he's in the Corps. And he and I spent all term long being chief and chiefess together, and he and I taught our entire tribe a cheer, and we actually several cheers. And so we were on our way to go perform these cheers for the judges for points, because you want to get points throughout the term and then win the term. So we design this cheer, we teach this cheer, we're on our way to share this cheer with the rest of the camp, and he slips the N-word when he's talking to a friend, and I'm walking right next to him. And all of a sudden, all of the trust and love and loyalty that I felt to him and to that tribe just flew out the window. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I kind of even remember saying something. I was like, you just said the N-word. And he was like, oh yeah. Like, he didn't even realize that he had said it. He didn't even realize that it just flew out of his mouth. And I kind of shut down again. I was mad. I was pissed. I didn't want to lead these cheers anymore. I didn't want to lead this tribe anymore. And I immediately felt isolated in that summer camp. Eventually that passed, but what that taught me, you guys, is that racism is still very much alive. People think that I grew up in the South and experienced all this racism and prejudice, and I really didn't. Besides these few stories that I'm telling you now, I had a very happy, very fulfilling, supportive childhood. Obviously, there's still healing to take place and ancestral trauma to address. I mean, we haven't even gotten into just the whole slave culture being passed down through Black families in the South. It's something that I'm really excited to end in my generation and for my children, but slave culture, whether it comes to calling our parents ma'am and sir, yes ma'am, no sir, yes sir. I remember my friends coming over when I was a kid and always saying what? You call your parents ma'am and sir? Or whether it's discipline resembling whippings and lashings. I mean, I went through all of that. And I mean, we can I don't want to laugh about it, but my family does laugh about it a lot. Just getting whippings, getting spankings and all those types of things. It's funny now for some reason. I don't think it's funny, but for some reason it's funny to talk about. I see it as slave culture still in our family and our ancestral traumas not being healed. So I'm taking that upon myself to heal that. But I want to be clear that, despite these few things that I've mentioned, I've had a beautiful life as a Black woman in America. And I feel very, very grateful to the women who have come before me, my mother, my grandmothers, my aunts, my cousins, my grandmothers and great-grandmothers and great-aunts, and all of these women who preceded me and made the life that I have as a very privileged Black woman possible. I am standing on their backs, and I am grateful for their contribution to this world, because honestly, you guys, it took people raising hell. It took people peacefully protesting. It took people speaking out and voting and getting out there on the streets for change to happen. So while it feels scary to see all this shit on the news about riots and burning buildings and tagging and looting, know that if it's in our human experience, it's for the highest good. It's for the highest good. I am able to be here, sitting here right now on this online platform because of the people, the men and women who have fought for this right for me to speak my truth. So why do I want to share this with you? I want to share this because there's a Black girl out there, a Black woman out there, a little girl in all of us that wants to hear that she's not alone, that wants to hear that the bullying that she experienced growing up isn't unique to her and that, well, that's awful. It shouldn't be that way. She's not alone. There are people to talk to. There are people who she can confide in and hold space with and evolve with and find the healing and the forgiveness in any of these situations. That's something that is also extremely important, is that I've forgiven all of these people. All of these people. They have hurt me, yes, but holding on to these memories as bad memories, as painful memories, really doesn't serve me. So even if I haven't fully forgiven them before this, right here, as you listen to me, let's all just take a deep breath and forgive them. Because all of the people that I mentioned before in this podcast were doing and are doing the best that they can with the tools that they have access to at the time. And if I allow their transgressions to affect my life, that doesn't even affect them at all. It only affects me. It only impacts my manifestation. So it's better off for me to forgive, to release, and to be free. The second reason, and most important and last reason why I'm sharing this with you, all of this with you, is because my message to the world, my reason for being in this skin suit, I honestly believe that I'm a reincarnation of my grandmother, Emma, who I never met. But she chose this life for me, who we call Katie J, so that I can share, so that we can share the good news. And guess what the good news is, you guys? Doesn't matter what you've been through. We've all been through shit. It's not about justifying our experience. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. It's just a spacesuit. It doesn't matter what your current reality is or what odds are against you. If you have a desire on your heart, then you have the means of experiencing the full manifested version of that desire in this lifetime. If you have a desire on your heart, then you have access to the means of experiencing the full manifested version of that desire in this lifetime. Doesn't matter what you've been through, doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter your skin color, doesn't matter who hurt you, doesn't matter what they're doing now with their lives. The creative power of the universe lives inside of you. You magical woman, you magical Black woman, you magical white woman, you magical Asian woman, you magical Polynesian woman, you magical Indigenous woman, you magical Hispanic woman, you magical Middle Eastern woman, you magical Indian woman, you magical wild woman. You have the creative power inside of you. That feels complete for me. I feel like I've shared enough for you to chew on. I encourage you to chew on it and get back to me. Send me an email, katie@womanifester.com. That's Katie. Or a DM on Instagram @womanifester. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your feelings. I would love to hear what resonated. I love hearing from my listeners. You can also take a screenshot of you listening on your phone, upload it to your story on Instagram, and tag me @Womanifester. I would love to connect with you and share on my story as well. Thank you if you decide to do that. Thank you for sharing my work. I appreciate it. I've noticed this dramatic uptick in people wanting to share the work of Black women and Black folk, and wow, I appreciate that. It just goes along with my mantra, which is things are always working out in my favor. I encourage you, if you want that to be your reality, to adopt that mantra as well. Things are always working out in my favor. I love you, and I really appreciate you for listening all the way to the end of this episode. Know that by you listening, you are educating yourself and growing yourself, and I just want to say thank you for connecting with me and for being a part of my listener base. You're amazing. I love you, and I will see you next week with a new episode with Indigo, who's the author of Woman Be Wild. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time. Namaste.